to an exclusive Rise and Play episode. I'm today with Miska Katkoff, founder of Deconstructor of Fun, full time, and the former CEO of Savage Games, where we work together. And for the context, we have been so busy in doing our own thing, track path. Maybe we'll touch on that today, but we didn't have a chance to catch up for the past, I don't know, 2, 3 months. I can't even track that. Then I was in India when people knew of me and Mishka in the episode and say, it was really good, was episode or the latest one about negative feedback or managing up, that reminded me, okay, note when I come back, we should keep the ball rolling as asked by our audience and people enjoy our conversation. We have a very interesting topic, and I'll let you start with it, Mishka, because we were exchanging, by text about success. And I've seen also some posts on LinkedIn about what is company success, what is success. And I see everybody is very heated and very passionate about the topic and having their own view about it. And I thought, why not having a conversation about success and deconstruct the definition of success? So,
Uh,
also, why did you want to start the conversation with it? And how are you coming in this conversation today?
well, thank you for having me on beautiful Rise and Play podcast. Nice to have you back and healthy from India. We have been messaging a lot, and I was expecting you to have a food poisoning. I was basically counting the days, and you didn't. So kudos to you, based on the type of food that you were eating there.
It's
Yeah.
all good. Nothing happened. So, I would like to approach the topic today of success through all lenses and also yours, because like now being more independent, I not that I have all the time of work, but I have more time to reflect on those topics. I'm sure you do. And I was thinking of external success versus internal success. And external, I'll explain as well what I mean by that is what society values, right? And even I was asking you as well, like what are your thoughts on it? And I'd like to start with the perception of external success with you. And you can tell me if actually you also agree with that or see that. What is valued, I see in the press, because the press also plays a part on it, right? It's the growth and revenues of a company, and those are published usually, an exit of a company. So when we look also at your profile, Mishka, about success, you founded Deconstructor of Fun, which I think is an amazing platform. Even when I was in India, so many people were speaking highly of Deconstructor of Fun and how it has impacted their life as a PM to have access to knowledge, because how do you grow an industry? It's access to network and knowledge, and it's like democratizing the knowledge and the access to knowledge, market thinking, access to experts opinion, deconstruction
Mhm.
analysis. And so it did have its impact, huge community as well, and still growing big now that you're in full time. So this is one element externally. Second, yes, you founded your company, Savage Games, with your co-founders, and bring it to also selling it to PlayStation Mobile, and then the rest of the story needs to be told. But you had an exit, and within 3 years. So that's also from the outside, like, whoa, okay, a company return to the investors, and then also is in under a good parent, PlayStation, great company. And then another point of personal or external success, which I know more from our private channels. You have a lovely family, you have a house, a roof to live under, you have all those elements, and you are, I would say, financially secure. So all those points are looking great, and like that man should be super happy, super fulfilled. What do you have to worry? So now we're having a conversation today about success. And how does that land on you when I'm sharing all of this that looks like a very good external success?
Well, first of all, I mean, we've talked about this, and I'm not like this is not a point of shame. I think this is something that I would like people to, especially the male audience of yours, and if this is published in Deconstructor of Fun of ours, which is 75% male, to tell that these are the topics that I discuss with my therapist. So it's quite interesting, and some of the material that she's given me is very interesting to read. And the material is about why success doesn't lead to satisfaction. I don't consider myself successful. Like I never like there are days when I feel successful. It's usually when something good has been done, whether it's personal life on or work life, but that success doesn't linger. And it's quite normal after talking to my therapist. Is like reaching that type of a stage is tends to be fleeting. And I'd rather, so I, I'll quote a Harvard professor called Arthur Brooks on his statement about success when studying a lot of executives and leaders and founders. And he writes that insatiable goals to acquire more, succeed conspicuously, and be as attractive as possible lead us to objectify one another and even ourselves. When people see themselves as little more than attractive bodies, jobs, or bank accounts, it brings great suffering. You become heartless taskmaster to yourself, seeing yourself as nothing more than Homo economicus. Love and fun are sacrificed for another day of work in search of positive internal answer to the question, am I successful yet? We become cardboards cutouts of real people. And so, in a way, when you describe me, I feel like a cutout cardboard of these individual things. Like I'm a human, just like everybody else. I do have relationships. I have challenges in my relationships. I have good times. I have bad times. And yes, these are certain milestones that you describe, but I don't like. I feel like they are just milestones. I don't feel that they define me as much. And what I'm kind of getting to is, and what with working with a therapist has definitely been going for is getting away from the need to compare. And of course, we are game designers. We know that the comparison is the foundation of cooperation and competition. And when you compare yourself, when I would compare myself to most of the people that I know, I'm a loser. So I try to actively avoid that and find different goals that are set by myself that I'm chasing. And one of those is that you mentioned with the deconstructor of fun. Like it really goes back to sort of your values, like what are your internal values. And I understand that probably 99% of listeners right now don't have set their own values, and I really encourage you to go on that explorational path. It's much more fun to do values for yourself rather than to your company. And I understood that part of my core values is authenticity, meaning like I need to be myself. I don't want to be swayed by others' opinions. And I very much enjoy the work of a deconstructor of fun is because one of the things that we are is authentic. Like we tell our opinions, we retract our opinions when we're wrong. We always are, authentic with what we're doing. And that's kind of like my core value. And that is one of the things that allows me not to compare to others because we're all different and we all have our different paths. And through that, I at least feel more at peace with myself.
Mm. So it's a good starting point with a comparison because here, and I've seen it in as a drive of many entrepreneurs, it's an endless race. You will always find someone who's better than you if you compare numbers. How big has been your exit? How much do you earn? How much do you possess? How many friends and likes do you have and followers? It's even like now being a bit more active on LinkedIn, I find myself having those thoughts, and it's really toxic. Actually, it's really you have to be do a conscious effort to be go beyond that and not to define yourself by those comparison by number, which is what we do all the time, right? When we compare KPIs, what makes a great game, what makes a good exit, the size. So
Hmm.
it's a whole system that we have to fight against, so that comparison, it's the default state of what everyone does. And one interesting point of development I found through my own journey as well, even like building Rise and Play. That's why I remember we were talking about numbers and how looking at numbers help and doesn't help. For me, it's more the growth that matters. Like, am I
Hmm.
making progress rather than am I big now? And it's a long journey, right?
Yeah.
Is it's an internal metric. And I take a quote here from an entrepreneur and investor, very savvy as well known, with a lot of philosophical thoughts, Naval Ravikant. I don't know if you know of him or have read from him. He has an amazing book as well with a lot of wisdom. And one he say, like, that resonated well with me because it's also very gamified as a definition. It's like we are all playing in the business world the multiplayer game. We are always comparing ourselves to other players. And like my approach as an entrepreneur, I want to play the single player game. I play the game of my life and I compete with myself. And many other entrepreneurs as well would say that, the Warren Buffett and Jim Rohn. And I have developed those thoughts as well over the years. what are the internal metric where no one can compete with me by being me. It's like no one can beat you at being Mishka. And how far have you thought of that? What does that mean? How does that translate if you are thinking with those metrics, internal metrics,
Yeah.
playing the single player game for you?
Yeah, it's I don't know if you should like go all the way to single player. All kind like comparison is not bad. It really there's this thing that fires you up, and I know I compare myself, whether it's our newsletter versus somebody else's, and I'm like, we gotta do better. We gotta, and that's a good type of a competition where I don't wish the demise of the others, but I wish to demolish them with better content. Not like they would go down, but just be much bigger because there's so much work and so forth. So not wishing somebody bad, but more taking it as a challenge to do better. And so that is a positive type of a feeling. It's not jealousy. And then when we talk about success, again, maybe I'm private because I have actually professional help in this sense, like the success or the sort of a dissatisfaction drivers are divided into three. And the one is money. So, as you mentioned, and even in studies, like I think it was like 80% of Americans said that if they would have more money, they would be more happier. And of course, there is a certain threshold after which more money is more problems. But nevertheless, like money is the number one thing. And then you kind of have to ask yourself different kind of questions like, what do I believe about the role of money play in my well being? What triggers my anxiety about not having enough money, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the role of achievements. And that's the other thing that you mentioned. And so that is sort of a like, do you neglect key relationships? Do you sacrifice your own health, your diet, your mental well being to achieve success? Do you feel disillusioned or resentful when you fall out short of goals? And this comes with especially many executives. They can hit 5 out of 6 of their targets and they feel like a failure because they didn't hit one of those. So they can't, rejoice, and founders as well with achievement. And then final one is the relationship with recognition and status. And so that is another driver. And this is like, do you regularly seek recognition from important people? Do you constantly spend time monitoring your status on social media like that? And so when measuring those, you actually have to break it down, just like a PM. You start breaking it down. What influences my success, and then really working and optimizing those. So with money, it's really important to set the sort of a goal to yourself. Like, what is the money target? For some, it might be the yacht money, and that could be challenging, but not impossible. If that is the thing, then you go for it. But it is a never-ending game. And I remember we were sitting here on my balcony with another successful game, let's call him game maker, and you know, in the conversation, he mentioned that he made 10 million euros. And I was like, wow. And he's like, I feel like he said this was the best quote. He feels like he's poor rich. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Because he's comparing. So he's comparing to another
Mm.
person who made 90 and now his 10 feels like it's nothing. And then he even says like, well, I could surf for the rest of my life or like, we'll do whatever. But nevertheless, like he was having this mental challenge. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is crazy talk. Like, you don't have to work anymore unless you want to. So do whatever you want, and etc. But it just tells you like there's no ending unless you put a certain number to yourself. And if he would have said, if I make five, I'd be the happiest person. Like, then I don't have to think about money ever in my life. And once he made 10, he'd be like, I'm double more happy. But he never set that type of a goal. And he only said, I got 10. And I look at others and I'm not even like top 10 earner in my country. So that's another power. And then, of course, when it comes to achievement and relationship and recognition, it's kind of like writing it down. What kind of relationships do you want to have with your close one, with your family, with your friends, etc., and then going after those? Like, when was the last time you took a trip? Well, you probably closer. I see you biking all over the place, but people with families and a lot of obligations, like, when was the last time you met with your friends and you and the boys and you and the girls went somewhere and just had fun and kind of reconnected properly? Probably a long time. And so that is also a measurement of success. If you put that in and you do that trip together with your friends, I think you'll feel really, healthy and really happy because that you achieved something that was important and that pushed your relationship and recognition status forward. So really breaking it down to money, achievements, and recognition and status, and then optimizing against those and setting your own targets, not taking targets from somebody else, but setting it
Mm.
for yourself.
Mm. And both setting your targets for yourself, I think this is exactly the core of the conversation today, which is really hard because it forces you to have to know a bit yourself and
Hmm.
your values, and not the ones you inherited. Because let's say you could have grown up in a family where everything is around status and numbers. If it's wealthy, and then you are expected to be wealthier, I don't know, or bigger, more successful. So it's a hard work, like as you say as well, Ron. Thanks for sharing so openly about therapy, where those are the opportunities of life to really look inward and like take a big zoom out,
Hmm.
where you really like lay out everything. It's like, do I still want to keep that part of me? And this is this really what I want or inherited? Because all those comparisons come from somewhere. It's not like, oh, we were born and like, I want to earn 1 million, so I'll be happy. It's something we took from, outside comparison and social media. And actually, one point of money that I've been reflecting on and also very conscious, in the end, re- in practice, we really need money to cover how we live, right? And
Hmm.
this is another point as well related to success. How do we want to live? And you have extreme entrepreneurs where they increase their expenses as they increase their wealth. So at some point, it's very dependable and you have to earn more to keep up with your lifestyle. And then you see other entrepreneurs like super conservative, Buffett, once again, like not changing the house forever, although he earns like, I don't know.
Top
But
10. Yeah.
that's the real definition of wealth. And I think this is maybe a point of conversation. What is being rich and being
Hmm.
wealthy, like around the money conversation? Because wealthy, according to, for example, Buffett and others who are wiser around the money, and the author who wrote Psychology of Money,
Hmm.
it's being able to earn at accordingly to your lifestyle, right? And so when you want less, when you are, I don't know, wiser, then you can be wealthy with less and save as you earn. So it's also almost a mindset and the way of living to manage your finances, which is what I meant to say is like, because money is kind of a metric for success.
Hmm.
But when you really break down the money and what is the goal of it, and not just a number, it's like, what do you want to do with the money? Does it offer you freedom, flexibility, which is maybe the way you want to live?
Yeah. So you touched upon an important point, and again, I have to get back to the values, and money is part of those. But when you go into let's call it finances. I think it's a more interesting way to put it than just money. And when it comes to finances, like you have to go through and understand like what is important for you. I don't fault anybody who wants to get a sports car, a beach house and a boat. That's great. If those are the things that whether they're their values or whether they are their beliefs. So values meaning the principles you live by, and beliefs meaning that these are the facts that you accept to be true, often without question. But when it comes to finances, like for me, I'll just talk about myself. For me, it means self-reliance. Really, that's what money is. Meaning that you can be independent and not having to rely on others. You can have freedom, like literally money for me is just a measurement of freedom, and there's a certain threshold after which you achieve your freedom, and then you can do things that you want to do, and that is the most important. And that was sort of a, like, even talking to my therapist, kind of going through these aspects, an important revelation, because I money is very important for me, but nevertheless I don't have anything that I wanted to buy. And they're like, well, what do you, I'm like, I don't want to own a boat, that sounds horrible. And I was like, a sports car is the most impractical thing you can get. And like, why would I have one when I can just drive my electric car and it's as fast, more reliable? Like the super stupid. Like, anyways, like there was nothing to buy. And then like a vacation home, I was like, yes, I love Spain. We go there all the time, but would I like to go to the same place? And what if like you have to have these calls about like pay some tax and do some work and all this hassle. I'm like, oh, actually, I don't want any of that. So then it was kind of like more like a deeper conversation. Like, what does it mean to you? And then I was like, oh, we always were poor when I was a kid. And that's one part where the importance of like a poor man mindset that just never goes away. And then the second one is just like I want to do these certain things, and I can do these certain things only after I accumulate enough wealth where I don't have to depend on getting enough revenue from the next things that I want to do. And once you get into that point, and then you can actually just calculate, just do your math with the funds, the investments, the apartments that you might have as for renting, etc. And then like, okay, this is the financial situation that I need to go for. And once I've done it, now I have my freedom to do what I want to do. And I think that was very helpful way of thinking. And then money becomes a certain target, but it's not a target of like I need to buy the next thing. It's more like after this,
Mm,
I can continue doing what I need and what I want without needing to do what anything for the money.
yeah. And that's a very concrete actionable for the listeners here is while deconstructing their own definition of what success is or the drivers in life, what do they want to do with money, how are they approaching it, because it's also a reflection of values. And I
Yeah.
really like how open you are about because it's easy to fall so on the luxurious possession, and it's not wrong because it may signal mean something else to
Yeah.
individuals when they can showcase success, but for you it's not in your values that it would move a needle in your sense of happiness,
Yeah.
meaning, or like for you, I hear it's more flexibility and freedom,
Yeah,
right?
self-reliance. And I'll
Self-reliance,
also
yes.
have to say, like, for any like for those who are like, no, but I want to get this and or whatever the material is. And I've been there. And it's really interesting to notice how it doesn't give you long-lasting satisfaction. I remember a case where I had some money. I'm almost 40. So I've been like let's put it this way. So I've splurged. And I remember at one time I really like I thought that the next step that I need to do is buy a Swiss watch. Of course, like how can I exist further without showing my wealth with a timepiece? And so I remember like I had like there was this dealer. The dealer came in, opened up his box. He drove him Mercedes, got all the watches, and we sat together and like chose the one. Yeah, this is the one I want. I got the watch. Just that, like everything was just like I imagined, just like on a YouTube video. And I think I was like excited for maybe like I don't know 48 hours about that. Like a Swiss watch is not a bad investment. Also, you can sell it. It's actually this one was Italian, but it's the same thing. And just an understanding that that doesn't make you much happier. I haven't used that watch. Like I maybe use it 5 days a year, just if there's like some kind of a party or you have to go to a wedding or whatnot, then you put your nice watch. But most of the time, you just use Apple Watch and just understanding that type of a thing that I was dreaming about it for a long time. Since I was in university, I was like, when I get older, like I really wanted to get the same type of watch as Schwarzenegger and Stallone have. Like I'm a pretty basic bro. And when I got it, like it just didn't feel like anything. And so that kind of
Mm.
disillusioned me about getting all kinds of material, whether it's cars or anything else. So I encourage everybody to also complete their goals and whatever buy the material that they think they really want, and just measure how you feel, not how everything else is. Like if that really made you super happy, if watch collection or car collection is like something that is like deeply satisfying to you, that's awesome. Then go for it. But if you really feel after like a week that it's just a watch, and then you're like, actually, I don't want any more watch. They're still cool, but and I got over these humps of like cars. Is I tended to rent always, like when we go somewhere, I would rent a really cool car and I would be like, it was great to drive it. Now I don't have to even think about buying it. Like a two-seater, like any kind of a cool car. Just drive it for a few days and get it out of your system. And then you don't need to do that
Mm.
stupid purchase.
Yeah, and it's good. It's also a lean way of approaching life in a way that you get the part that you really want to experience without the burden of, because it's a reality. It gives you more work. That's why wealth could be like that trap where you possess more and then you need to employ people to take care of it, a house, a garden, and multiple cars, and I don't know, God knows what. It's a
Yeah.
whole company and business you're running, but then yeah, you're not very free anymore. It's actually so
Yeah.
it's taking a step back to ask yourself, and then it's a journey of learning, right? You wouldn't have known this without experiencing it. I wanted to get back to a point as well, as you mentioned therapy, because what was the signal or the cues for you? Because you could, like, again, back from the outside, like, well, I'm good here. I can enjoy my whole life. I've worked really hard, and I know the startup times really, it's probably very stressful, right, fundraising, the future of the company. Among all things, like, why, how did you end up in going to therapy and starting, if you open to share, because maybe that resonates with others of the listeners.
Yeah, I think so. Therapy Well, there's two factors. So, of course, being a founder and spending a lot of time with different founders, successful, those who had suffered defeats along their journey, they kind of recommended me as well, like going through therapy, that how much it helped them. So that's one part. And then, of course, with my spouse. So a lot of the time, what happens, and she did therapy when she was much younger due to different things, and then some later on. She's always open to go to therapy to solve some of the issues that she's having, and she encouraged me as well, strongly encouraged. Because what happens is when you have these emotions that are unclear, whether it's your values, whether it's your belief, whether it's the stress that is like we often say, oh, I'm just super stressful, and you never go into why. There's like a stress relief, so go for a jog, do some sports, smoke some weed. I'm not encouraging anybody to smoke some weed. I'm sorry, we're not in the US. So don't do that, definitely, at least, yeah, unless you're in Holland. But these type of things. And there's never, like, there is, but it's not quite often with men to go to the source of what really stresses you out, and what really is the thing that makes you an unpleasant person to be around with, because you're not internally set. And that's where I went to therapy. And then my point was, a lot of it was like imbalance in priorities. And that's where I started working, is like work was such a big priority, like this need of achievement, this the need of all of that was just like going ahead of everything, and it didn't feel good, but it still went ahead. And I took the calls, and late, I tried to help people, I tried to do this, like just too many. And where I gave more to others than I gave to those who I really actually appreciate and cherish. And that kind of started the journey of building your values, understanding that you're not the only one with these challenges, that's actually like beyond common. And that kind of normalize your thing, and then that sets you on your own path, on your own goal setting, and makes you feel much more comfortable in your own skin. So that's basically it, and that's why I definitely encourage other founders to do this. And I also, like yesterday, I received an email from an update from a startup I've invested in quite a few, and not doing well, like as many. I mean, have to cut costs, have to cut people, have to double down on work. Definitely not looking good. Easily see them go bankrupt next year. And my point for them is like, just dude, do this, and then after that, just stop. Live to fight another day. Like, you don't have to give it your all and feel like an utmost failure in everybody's eyes because your startup failed. It's just like, it was a good
Yes.
idea, it just didn't work. Like, that's fine. I don't hate you. Nobody does. Most likely people will fund
Mm,
you again. It was what it was. Most startups fail. Just be fine with it. Like, go work somewhere for a couple of years, and let's do it again. And kind of like having that empathy and understanding how important it is for them, and probably like how humiliated or defeated they feel, and just being like, it's fine, dude. Let's go.
mm,
So
mm. It's very also powerful that you share just what you shared, like to make it, I think you use the word normalized, because I can imagine, well, I'm not a man, so I can't imagine, of course, but I can imagine still that it's quite a difficult topic and not so widespread because it's maybe stigmatized and like you have a problem, you're weak, and so on. And I wanted also to go back to years before you even, I don't know if it was the first time that you consider therapy at this stage of your life and where you're at. What was a blockers or some resistance or I don't prejudice you had around therapy in the past before you actually now know what it is? Maybe that could help others to understand the journey for you.
yeah, I think there's two things. One was time. It's like, I just don't have time. I don't have time to go
Mm,
somewhere, to sit on a couch, chit chat some bullshit. And the other part is just like, felt like a weak's man, like a weak person's thing, to just go in and complain. Like, why would I? Oh, boohoo, I have hard times. Just like, shut up and do work. And like, those are the internal
mm,
thoughts. And definitely it's not like that, because you have to consider it more as mental training or meditate. I hate word meditation because it's so cool nowadays, but it's more like you're talking to your mental coach, and they help you to not necessarily define inner balance, but just help you to think more clearly, help you to be a better person. just by, focusing on yourself and your own mindset and understanding that athletes do it all the time. Like they have their mental coaches, whether there's football players who are having like a dry streak or fighters or you name it. And like normalizing just that and then considering in my head, I was like, okay, it's a mental coach. It's not a therapist, it's a mental coach. And that helps. But it's very easy to like if you haven't done it or if you've tried it once and maybe you didn't just connect with a therapist, it's quite easy to consider it something that is not needed, something that haven't used prior. So why would you use it now? There's many easy ways to neglect it, but I think it's just a tool. And if you neglect this powerful tool for training your mind, I think it's a disadvantage. And that's why I would say that's how why I would recommend it for men. So just, maybe don't talk too much about it if you don't want to. I'm saying it just because I know I'm in a position where a lot of people will listen to it, and I hope to normalize it so more would use this tool. But, you know.
And I appreciate it. And I can tell you, having worked with many teams and dynamics, those baggage that we bring at work, they come from the past. And like you say, it's a tool and it's actually an advantage if you can understand what you're bringing into work and maybe not being attached like, oh, that's the way I am and I've always worked this way. I don't know, being aggressive or being pushy and that's how I succeed. And understand, well, actually that's also a limiter of you
Hmm.
today. So therapy, I see this as a tool to look at the past, and like now that I do coaching as well, it's more looking forward. So that's the main difference between the two. Therapy is more analyzing the past, making sense so you can get extract learnings about yourself. It's like a deconstruction of yourself
Hmm.
in a way, a next stage of Deconstructor of Fun. And then coaching is more, okay, action plan. How do we go forward? Like, okay, that's the situation, that's the audit. But therapists, their goal is not to get on goals, right? It's more to be there with what's happening. And so a coach is like, okay, now let's walk, let's race, let's run to that next thing that you want in your life, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And those two are
exactly.
very complementary.
Yes, and yes and no. Like they really do different things. Coaching is more
Mhm.
tactical, it helps you with your work. Therapy is more that helps you as a person. And no matter where you are right now, whether you're working or even not, it helps you to understand yourself better. It's like a mental mirror, if you will. And when you find a good therapist with the ways of working that you enjoy, for me, it's like she gives a lot of reading material. We listen to some of the same podcasts, and she's like, listen to this and let's talk about it and so forth. So it sounds really interesting. Like that is the way I like to do it, and helps me to find tools that I can use myself. And and that's, but what I'm trying to say is try to find the type of a therapist that works with the way you work, and just give it a go 5 times or something like that. And of course, like you have to be open also with what is the challenge. Like it took me a long time before I was able to really pinpoint like my priorities in my life are off. And it really started with this sort of a journaling book that I got from Instagram ad for men. And it had yeah, it's like this black leather journaling thing. I don't know, I'm perfect. I buy all kinds of stuff from Instagram. And it's like questions and something like that per day. And it at one point it had like this the list of 100 things you want to achieve, and started putting them. And a lot of the stuff was quite simple, like not achieve, but like a bucket list of 100 things. And a lot of the stuff was like very much like around friends and family. And I was like, these are not hard to achieve. Why am I not just doing them? And so kind of like the priorities are off. Like I'm focusing on things. And they'd also put in like different categories where are you succeeding and not, like relationships, work, finances, and so forth. And like succeeding in certain areas and really being poor at others. And that kind of set the question forward, like, hey, I have problems with prioritizing. I'm not hitting balanced goals. I'm hitting on the other
Mm.
side. So I need to be hitting them more balancedly, and then going to a therapist, getting tools to understand your own values, understand your own beliefs, setting goals, setting ways of working around those. Coaching, then again, it's like when we talk about aggressiveness or how you lead and those kind of type of things, therapy won't help you there. So unfortunately, it might a little bit, but not as, they won't give you a day-to-day tools.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's different tools for different
Hmm.
purpose.
Hmm.
But in coaching, you have to understand first before you can change something. So that's why awareness, therapy brings awareness, and that's the very first step. So in change, I think therapy is a
Yeah.
good tool to begin with.
Have you tried
I'm
therapy?
going. I did multiple times actually. The point for me that was the trigger was when I was building my own studio,
Hmm.
and I was during COVID, and I was reading myself where I was so driven by my goals of succeeding. Like there was a lot on the line for me. Like I need to prove that I can build a studio quickly, like we can launch a game, etc. And then just things didn't work according to the plan because it was COVID. We couldn't be
Uh-huh.
all working together. The team was stressed. I felt like it was slipping through my fingers, and I was like, and it was impacting all the areas of my life. And this was the signal, like, okay, there's something not working for me, and why do I care so much? What does it mean for me to succeed at this stage? And this is where I understood a lot of letting go of understanding where it was coming from for me. And maybe I'll share here also, as you shared some part of personal. It's coming from my upbringing. Like a lot of my drive for success is coming from my upbringing. My parents, immigrants, I mean, that's a common story. They came to France and they didn't have a success story they wanted because it was taken away from them with the war. They just had to flee. So they put it on the children. And
Hmm.
I'm the eldest. So I had to carry the flag and made it all worth it. It's like all this suffering, all this sacrifice for us for a better life. I need to succeed because then otherwise it was not worth it. So I was carrying all this burden, but I was not doing for myself but for my parents as well. So everyone would be happy, and at some point I had to free myself from it because I couldn't feel in my own shoes. At some point it was like it's not me. I'm not myself. I'm not doing this as myself. And that
Hmm.
was the point where I learned to be then more starting the path to rise and play, as like all the things that we sometimes are our drivers, they are legacies. And what is the cost is ourself, because we can feel it in our body that something is not right. And when we don't feel it, the body will tell us, right? You end
Yeah.
up like, burnout, sick, and so on. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Sadly, a lot. Not sadly. Interestingly, a lot of it comes from our childhoods, all these type of things, and it's not bad. It's just like, again, it's not like a childhood trauma. It's just understanding where this comes from, and then being able to prioritize the things that actually make you happy and that are according to your values, not the values of somebody else. And that's the problem. Is like we oftentimes work against the goals that others set us rather than the goals that we set ourselves.
Yes. And I want to finish with the last question going forward, and maybe setting some direction of, because I'm very curious, like we are all work in progress always. So
Hmm.
I catch you in that stage of life. But a book that really has inspired me as well when I was like setting my own journey with Rise and Play, going independent, and like finding myself quite happy these days from the pathless path. Success is finding something that is worth doing indefinitely. So it's more about the journey than the outcome. As long as you can live a life and it's like very in the moment present. And again, it's like another way to think about it is like the day you can have a bit of consciousness before you die, because I think it's very healthy also to think about mortality. We don't, it's not a funny thought. I am very aware of that, but it's also a very healthy thought when you know that our time on this planet is limited, and it's not when we think it is, right? Even I was thinking a lot about that when I was in India and I was in the back of a car with no safety belt, 90 kilometers on the highway. I was really thinking highly
Hmm.
about that moment. Like, what is if it's like my last moment? And what is it that I wish I had done that before, this is now? And
Hmm.
I don't know if you have those thoughts, and if there are things that you haven't done yet that you wish you would do if your moment had to be tomorrow, right? And what are you
Yeah.
doing these days to fill those buckets of balance, like you mentioned?
Yeah. I mean, I do have the bucket list and it's growing with a lot of really silly things, and I'm trying to get those done. But you had that quote about success. I have another one that I constantly do for measurement. I've said this before. It's if you're successful, you do whatever you like. If you're unsuccessful, you do what somebody else likes. It's that simple. This is by Morten Mikus. He's the CEO of HackerOne. I happen to know this person, so it makes the quote much more impactful. And this is really how I measure my days. Like I do stuff during my days that others want me to do, So I can't say that those days are successful, but I try to get to a more and more of a position where I can do the things that I want to do. And yeah, it's constant and really it's like your question was like, what would I do against the list, or if my day was tomorrow? It's like, that's a sad thing to think about. Like, that's very I wouldn't
Yeah,
like
no,
it
but
to.
what are the areas of life that you have been overlooking and that you are
Yeah.
rebalancing today? I'm curious, like more
Yeah.
concretely.
Yeah, so definitely family life, being more present with the kids, which I'm not all the time. It's definitely a challenge still. Having good relationship with my wife, getting back with my friends, all these things have been neglected at the altar of achieving success through work. And those are the type of things. And then the second part is like something that I love Deconstructor of Fun about, and something that I'm focusing on building for at least, next half a year, is getting it into a position where Deconstructor of Fun can help even further founders, leaders in gaming, not just with the content, but with certain tools that and instruments that we are planning to do. And that is again kind of like the aspects that I feel excited about. Yeah, it's according to my values. I really do like appreciation. I enjoy being recognized by others, and that validates and helps, and by others, and by others who I care about. And so those are the type of aspects I really care about all kinds of founders, and we're trying to work towards that. But really going through these elements and bucketing, like I said, like just opening it up in different categories, like what are your values, and making sure that you're working against them with multiple different things. So with authenticity, with self-reliance, with creativity, meaning like all these new starts, all these kind of fun things that we're working
Hmm.
together on a bunch of things and so forth. And then the catering to my like of appreciation. I think most of us like to be appreciated by those who I care, and I'm one of
Hmm.
those. So I'm not gonna say that's not important.
Yeah. And that's really important that you're owning it, right? I think this is back to the authenticity. Let's not try to be someone else to be liked, but accepting who we are and accepting that there are people who will support, approve that part of us, and some will not. But I think at the end of the day, although it's a very self-centered way of thinking, you have to like yourself first and accept who you are. Then it's
Yeah.
acceptable that others could also love you, right? If you are, and what is happening most of the time as well is you looking for external validation when there's not that internal validation, so it's back
Yes.
again to the measurement from inside.
Yeah, and part of I have to say part of the value of appreciation is also helping those you care about and validating those. And that's an important, like, it goes both way. It's not just I need to be appreciated, but I like when people have that value, again, it's quite often that they get satisfaction when they appreciate others who they care about. So
Hmm.
I might have been doing that a little bit. So
Yeah, yeah. But this is the last. I bring some wisdom also from India, where we were talking a lot about that with some other founders, entrepreneurs, and it's almost like a hierarchy of self-realization. And you know what goes beyond after you can take care of yourself is that you can be at the service of others, and
yeah.
that's what creates meaning in life, because this you are enough. You don't need to serve yourself and feed yourself all the time, and you have a capacity to bring to others, and that you care about for impact and creating value. And thankfully, we are also a world like this. Otherwise, we would just, not be collaborating and trying to improve the world, the environment where we live in. Yeah.
Wise words from India. I might need to
Yeah.
go there. No promises.
Yeah. So listen carefully, everyone.
Yeah.
Mishka said those words, and
Might.
we'll take him. We'll take this for 2024 for the listeners. Let's wrap it up for today. Is there something, although we touch upon like on many things like therapy,
Mhm.
success, personal, external success, money, wealth, very important topics that I know don't always get the attention because we talk about them only when they are
Mhm.
important. Is there something that I didn't ask you, I should have asked you, or that you wanted to ask me at last?
I think we've covered a lot in a relatively short amount of time. I don't Nothing that comes to my mind really. I want to just kind of like to finalize on really the importance of, like, this is something that you brought forward, I think, a good time ago, and it took me at least a year to get to a point of really like thinking about my own values, because that helps you to understand yourself better. So I would encourage listeners to explore their values and not like sit one evening and just write them down and be done with it. It takes a good amount of time to understand yourselves. So put like 6 months for it. Just explore a little bit every week of different things, what makes you tick. If you arrive there faster, that's better. If you arrive there later, that doesn't matter, as long as you're able to understand yourself better. And then there's probably a link somewhere below for the journaling the book, especially if
Please,
men, like men
yeah, I
don't
love it.
oftentimes do it, but it's a really cool sort of a journaling thing where every day or every week it has, kind of like internally think and put your what emotions are you feeling right now and why. And there's always different things. It's not like a blank journal, it's very much an assisted journal. And I think that is a great way of starting off easy with a clear first time user experience of getting to know yourself and potentially finding different tough spots. And then I'll finalize it with, as I said in the beginning, majority of people who I know are infinitely more successful than I am. And that can be a bad thing if you're comparing yourself, or it can be a good thing because when you know them properly, when you spend time with them, you understand that the challenges about self-realization, feeling that you're not enough, feeling that you're not appreciated by others, maybe because you're too successful, those persist with people who we would consider don't need to worry about anything, the challenges in personal life, etc. And so understanding that this is not only you and this is not just because you don't have enough of something, it persists with all of us. And yeah, that's a quite a powerful realization that more money or more appreciation won't take away the internal issues that you have until you do it yourself.
A lot of wisdom. It's been just a few months, Mishka, but I wanted to give also some praise, recognition to that work as well, because it's not an easy work. It is the work of life, and it
Mhm.
works that takes time, as you said. So a lot to process. Thanks a lot for sharing today, and please link that manly journal,
Yeah.
dark manly journal. I'm quite curious about
It's
it.
very
It's
dark, very
amazing.
leathery.
It's amazing the branding. I'm quite impressed. Many others could relate and start the journaling.
Thank you, everybody. And send us some feedback, like and share Rise and Play podcast by Powerful Sophie
Hmm.
Vo. So, on that note, thank you, everybody, for listening. Till next time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.